It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust, sweat, blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds? Who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions? Who spends himself in a worthy cause? Who at the best knows, in the end, the triumph of high achievement? And who, at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat.
The man in the arena doesn't nod his chest as you are doing. Are we safe that you won't settle this matters the Bulsa way?
I am quoting,
knowing that you are from Kadima, give an assurance to this committee.
Man, I think that it is unacceptable for the minority leader to use a tribal epic to describe a whole people. I think that that is a little bit, no, it's offensive to the tribe, you know, and I think that it is not fair. What is settling the Bulsa way? What does it mean? I mean, you are in the Bomba, you don't talk like that about
I direct that part be taking off the record. He intended it as a joke. I think if the Bulsa way is offensive,
he should not make derisive remarks about Bulsas. I'll never do that about the Gombes.
Looking at Article 41 and the requirement, it says that are you able to say categorically that you can live with other people in harmony?
I have lived with decent people in harmony for 66 years. I cannot live in harmony with criminals. That I won't lie. I won't lie. But decent, respectable people who will not ask you to do this and then stab you in the back. Those are traitors. I can't live with them. But decent people, I will live with them. Criminals, I can't.
Mr. Chairman, the honorable nominee is quoted to have said that NDC appointed Charlotte Osei to rig elections. In the article, he went on to quote him, she was appointed by a corrupt government precisely because of her incompetence. That made her susceptible for use for an election rigging agenda. Can the nominee provide evidence for this assertion? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the problem is that there are privileges here, so we can ask questions and get away with it. I can give answers and get away with it. But I'm immune once I'm sitting here, you see. But the subject person you are talking about is cases are sub judice before an investigatory commission. And it would not be fair when there is no adversarial approach here in whatever I will say and a response from her. As a lawyer, it will be the worst thing you can do to her. I would have wished that at the time I said this, and during the time the government was in power and I was saying this, they had asked their CID to pick me up, and then I'll make a statement, and then we would have seen whether they could have won a case in court against me or not. But it is too late in the day. When they were afraid that because I'm from the same pond with them, or I was stepping on some stone, which I could throw, But I don't think it is fair for anybody, for me, when the fellow's case is sub judice before a committee, to come and be talking about it.
The nominee is quoted to have said that former President Mahama is sabotaging corruption fights in Ghana. And to quote him, he noted that President Akufo-Addo's inability to tackle corruption as promised is due to the NDC moles in the ministries who are misadvising the ministers responsible for dealing with issues with corruption. Can he tell us how former President Mahama, who is out of office, is sabotaging the effort of the president to fight corruption in this country?
Yes, no.
If the statement he made is true, anybody can say that it is defamatory, right? So I don't think that I want to answer that question in the face of this parliament. I have made statements about President Mahama's government. They're on my webpage. He was in government. He could have dealt with it. He didn't deal with it. And I'm not going to answer this question after he's out of office.
Chairman, I decide which one you answer or not. Sorry, Honorable
Very
but
well.
Can you listen to me? Were you stating a fact or writing an opinion? If it is a fact, then you're liable to substantiate it. If it's an opinion...
I was stating a perception.
Mr. Chairman, the name of the nominee is a problem. Was he born with these names or he acquired them as he went along? Martin, Alamisi, Benz, Kaiser, Amidu. I mean, what is that?
Mr. Chairman, normally, when I was born, my birthday was used to call me. That's Alamisi. That's because in some customs, they don't immediately name. And that Alamisi followed me. When I was baptized, I chose the name Martin. Amidu is my father's name. When we were in Bokomiru boarding, there was the picture of Sir Alan Benz. And everybody called me Alan Benz. Even today, my classmates call me Alan Benz. So I decided to call myself Benz. Then when I did history in commercial school, we did the German Kaiser. And Adom-Otchere and co all, as Dano preferred, when I'm going to talk, they will say, silence, the Kaiser speaks. So I became Kaiser. And as I said, at one time in my life, I wanted to cancel all of them and be called Alamisi Amidu. Then when I got to law school, I read Reverend Williams. He says, what is there in a name? A name is a nonsense syllable. So if it's a nonsense syllable, why change it? So I left it. What will be different between the special prosecutor's office and whatever office of law enforcement? And the reason why I agreed to accept the nomination is that this is a new office. Corruption has done so much damage to this country. In the conflict resolution, it is called structural violence. It's an invisible violence that kills millions without anybody seeing it. Taking millions of cedis for oneself under illegal circumstances deprives people of good health, education, and all the developmental facilities you can give. So what I want to do is to be able to set up a credible institution with a credible culture, which will be able to block the leakages and the seepages. If I'm able to do that, I don't care even whether I am not able to prosecute anybody. And part of the law says that it is preventative, right? So if I can put the machinery in place to prevent these leakages and seepage, I can assure you that if we succeed, we won't need foreign aid. I will say, with knocking my chest, that the amount of seepages and leakages at the ports, if we were to close them, our budget will not need foreign assistance. And that is why I accepted this job, to try to help the people of this country, to see whether what I started fighting as a child can at least be realized to some extent, in the hope that whoever takes over from me will keep the spirit. And so I can go to my maker knowing very well that my colleagues who died during the PNDC did not die in vain. If anybody, I've said it time with that number, commits a corruption offense, he will not be, I will not see him as a member of a political party. I will see him as a suspected criminal. It's pure and simple. And that's how I will deal with the fellow. Crime is crime, and the president repeated it. Crime is crime without political correlation. And that is how the office will be dealt with, will be supervised if I am approved. Indeed, as I've said, the fact that you know me, if you come to talk to me about it, I may order your arrest, because under section 239, trying to directly or indirectly influence the special prosecutor as a public officer is corruption. Any Ghanaians don't know that. So we'll try to be as impartial as possible, as humanly as possible. We are going to try to be the moral compass, and will be the gatekeepers, so that nobody will say the ask is casting one way. You know, so the best thing is, if the office is set up, stop it. If you don't stop it, and the law gets with you, and it's so serious in the national interest to prosecute you, and you don't offer to say, I've sinned, I will pay, who will prosecute you?
Mr. Chairman, I really want to know from you whether he has resigned from NDC or he's still a member.
Mr. Chairman, one doesn't need to resign. The Supreme Court has held that while you are a public officer, you cannot take part in party politics. I think it involved Dr. Adom-Otchere and co. I did that case in the Supreme Court. So I don't need to. No, even when you are a potential public officer, you are supposed to exhibit neutrality. So I don't need to make a formal resignation of anything. It's by operation of law. As Attorney General, I had said that Woyome cannot be prosecuted alone, and that all his accomplices must be prosecuted. Indeed, when we met in my office on the 13th of January, the attorneys who are listening, unfortunately Gertrude Akins, the DPP, is dead, but the other lawyers, and then Gezi and co, who are listening, in the conference room, they all agreed that part of the fault is from this house. Right? So we said that.
Nominee, this house as in Parliament or?
No, the Attorney General's Department.
Very well.
So if we are going to prosecute, we should prosecute everybody involved and not Woyome alone. That was one of the reasons, you know, why the Hundrums hounded me, so that they would not be prosecuted. So Woyome alone was prosecuted. And if you remember, in the judgment, the judge said that Woyome could not be prosecuted alone, and that those who acted with him were not brought. So Ajet Nassam, who was proved to be a corrupt judge later, acquitted Woyome. You know, if I had prosecuted that case together with the accomplices, the result will be different. And my perception is that the prosecution was bungled to get that guy out.
Can you share, in all honesty, the circumstances of you being asked to step aside as Attorney General by the then President, Professor John Evans Atta Mills, as some quarters are asserting that the ground for your dismissal is insubordination? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I can assure you that I was not dismissed for insubordination. Indeed, there is a consent judgment filed in the High Court which shows that the termination of my appointment was wrongful, and the government was ordered to pay me 1 month's. I agreed to it. I didn't want to pull this thing. So when they suggested 1 year's salary, I said, okay, it's all right. It's not the money I'm needing, it's the principle. So the whole idea about me being sacked and all that, there is a court judgment. And indeed, the government before it's left was pulling its legs from paying my benefits. And the present government, if they paid at the last end, before they even paid some of it, my interests are still piling. My official card since 2012, the court ordered it. It's still hanging there. But I'm following it. So anybody who gives the impression that I was dismissed for insubordination should go to the court and read the judgment and the terms of settlement. And there's a new Attorney General who should be able to make that available. So don't let us. And you see, let me say one thing. Professor Mills was a very close friend. And I was a very close confidant and advisor. And I'm saying that His Excellency Sir Bibaku Mensah, his secretary, and Colonel Lawson will tell you that there is no week he doesn't send for me specifically until the 13th, whom I don't know who asked him to call me and my brother's wife and put those questions to me. That's when I thought there was breach of trust. So I told him, I won't serve you again. I said it, that there's a breach of trust. You asked me to come as a friend. If you don't trust me again, I won't serve you again. And then the issue went on. Go and come at 3 o'clock. I said, I will send my resignation letter the moment I get to my office. His Excellency Sir Bibaku Mensah speaks in Hausa. I'm your senior brother. Come back. So I come back. Captain Chikata comes, takes me into a room. How can we seniors be here and you are leaving us and going? Go and collect the money. So I go to court on the 16th. That's how come this letter eventually came. And then on the 19th, they announced that they had terminated my appointment. Then somebody goes to say I was terminated for misconduct. So I went to court. That's the situation.
My last question now. No, that was the agreement, that this will be my last question. I'm grateful, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, my final question comes from the book authored by Dr. Obed-Yao Asamoah, and the Honorable nominee just talked about the many years he's been Attorney General. For many years, he was the deputy to the venerable and respected Dr. Obed-Yao Asamoah. In this widely acclaimed and fascinating book titled The Political History of Ghana, 1950 to 2013, The Experience of a Nonconformist, on page 465, Dr. Yao Obed Asamoah had this to say about you. Page 465. 465. Dr. Obed Asamoah said, quote, "In the end, Professor Mills chose as his running mate my deputy at the Ministry of Justice, Martin Amidu, in a surprise and unproductive move," unquote. Surprise and unproductive move. In the next paragraph, he writes, "In my mind, I did not think that Martin Amidu would be beneficial to the ticket," unquote. I'm sure that you are aware of this publication. This was your boss for many years. You've talked about us checking with the people you have worked with to vouch for your credibility and your hard work and impartiality, which I am not saying is in doubt at this point. But how do you respond to your boss passing such a damning verdict on your selection as running mate of then candidate Mills?
Mr. Chairman, in the first place, Dr. Asamoah is not my boss.
Honorable Oni, hold on. If you wish to answer, fine. But I would have...
Let me answer him.
Very well.
Dr. Asamoah is not my boss. He did not pay my fees through law school. He was called to the bar. I was called to the bar. He didn't appoint me Deputy Attorney General. I was appointed Deputy Attorney General before he came there. And I served under Akins, Nanatano. Mr. Forson came for 6 months before he was asked to act, right? And we are colleagues, except that he was the Attorney General and I was the deputy. And therefore I knew my place and worked with him. That doesn't make him my boss. You see, so you are reading a self-serving book in which he wanted to be the vice presidential candidate. He was bypassed. The candidate saw in his deputy more competence, right, and excellence than him. Then he writes a book, and he writes this thing, and you are coming to read it to the whole public. I've never read that book. I've heard about it. But you see, you have raised it in public. You see, you are reading a self-serving statement when your own presidential candidate and later president saw me as a more preferred candidate than him. And in any case, the law reports demonstrate that while he was doing that, I was going to court. He didn't train me. So don't, and if you say he is erudic, well, that's your comment. But you see, I regret that you've brought his book and you want to knock my head against his. In his recent interview to MFA Apau, he described me as a person of honesty. You see, but you see, you people, you will collapse your old people by reading these things. Then I'll react this way. Dr. Sabwa calls me. Dr. Sabwa calls me, even when I was Attorney General. And even when he was accused, he called me to find out, Amidu, did it happen? And then I told him it didn't happen. So I'm on good terms with him. So if because of vetting we are doing this, I don't think it's good. You know, I would have let the question pass, but the public will understand it otherwise. Indeed, Professor, he and my senior brother, Elijah Mamedus, were looking for it. And then when Prof gave it to me, I told him, I will not accept a position which my senior brother was looking for unless he gives his blessing. I asked him first, have you told Dr. Sama? He said, yes. He's supposed to have been with me here to announce it to you. But he said, I can go ahead. I asked him, did you tell Elijah Mamedusu? He said, no. I said, that's my senior brother. I can't take a position he was looking for. So if you want, after he persuaded me, I said, well, then you have to seek Elijah's concurrence. I was driving myself. I drove to Elijah's house, pointed to his house. Prof went and saw him. Asked Elijah, he's alive, he's not dead. Before I accepted the position. So my customary behavior with elders is special. And I wouldn't have liked to talk about Dr. Samuel. You've put temptation in my path. Unfortunately, unlike Justice Philip Archer, I took it. But I'm sorry to make those comments about him.
Chairman, I'm only doing my job. I thank you very much.
Honorable Ogujoto, you're done, please. And I can't say, I mean, I would have wished that we didn't go there, but I think we would, I'll take Adom-Otchere and then we'll break for lunch because we can continue, but the candidate needs a break to stretch his legs, and so we will take Adom-Otchere and then we'll break for lunch and come back. So please.
In fact, Moko, no man fancy swap, Monfre agents, no, Namunka say, Yadiano, Oman first time pass, and I say police stick now, Fredo, I can say, Yan first time pay Sisu, into a movement to see mammy, Naminko to be, Mbo Obia, so Nayadia, Obia, Obedia, on Beco. The end is surely, our strength unity from
The response of the new patriotic party to this demand was inter alia to pledge in its manifesto for the 2016 general elections the establishment of the Office of Special Prosecutor, an independent, non-partisan body with the relevant professional capability to lead the fight and hold public officials, past and present, accountable for their stewardship of public finances. The enactment of the Office of Special Prosecutor Act, Act 663/2018, by an MPP-dominated parliament is the first stage in the fulfillment of that pledge. Satisfied of the constitutionality and propriety of the legislation, I assented to it on the 2nd of January 2018. The Act, pursuant to Section 13(3), provides for the nomination by the Attorney General of a person fit for appointment by the President of the Republic, subject to approval by Parliament by an absolute majority of its members to perform the functions of the office. The Special Prosecutor, once confirmed by Parliament, will carry an extraordinary responsibility, independently and impartially, to fight corruption. The Special Prosecutor, as the Act states in its preamble, and I quote, shall have full authority and control over the investigation, initiation, and conduct of proceedings of alleged or suspected corruption and corruption-related offenses involving public officers and politically exposed persons in the performance of their functions, as well as persons in the private sector involved in the commission of alleged or suspected corruption and corruption-related offenses, unquote. The remit of the office, as you can see, is broad and challenging. The Attorney General is by letter dated Thursday, 11th January 2018 of today's date, addressed to me, exercised her power of nomination and submitted to me for my acceptance the name of the proposed Special Prosecutor. I've accepted the Attorney General's nomination and will in turn submit for Parliament's approval when it reconvenes on the 23rd of January 2018 for its first meeting of this new year, the name of Martin Alamisi Burns Kaiser Amidu to be the first Special Prosecutor under the law.
I met two gentlemen in a saloon car. I said, can I do anything for you? He said, we are from BNI. I said, from BNI? Yes. They come in, so I opened and they came in and searched you. I said, for what? He said, we are under instructions to arrest you, search you and bring you to headquarters. And searched me, said we are under instructions. So they went in, searched my house. My mother, who was sick, and my wife were in the house. They searched, took my computer, took some papers, and told me to accompany them to the DNI. And I told her I'd be happy to see the director because I don't understand why on the 6th of December, when the next day was election, of course it came out later on that they claimed that somebody had told them I was to deliver a lecture on corruption that day. I said no.
The name of Martin Alamisi Burns Kaiser Amidu to be the first Special Prosecutor under the law.
Bam, bim, bim, bam, Smash TV. I have never with you. I see me like GTV, but I run the place like Smash TV.
Yeah, man, you don't know Ghana. My name is Jupiter, the General Ghana, and every dancer superstar represent on Smash TV. Number the touch it, is me. Enemies.
Smash TV, if you not watch it, then you lose. losing. I may keep telling you, you must be tuning.
Order. This is Uptown Energy. You're watching Smash TV. Mad 10.
Yeah, man. Smash TV. You don't know for me Smash. We are cause a lot of crash. Me I said this, we don't know blush. You don't know me, I'm a white man, so me don't blush. Black skin boy attack. Big up Smash TV, I Judah and Darcy. Mad spark fire. What do you mean, man?
Robin Wesley production. Welcome back to the show, and I'd like to run through the text messages very quickly, and then we go to our guest. HG Indomitable Nathan Esiama says that I smell Ghana is good. It's soon going to be a Wyomically rich country. Nana Eje Bako says, God bless Nana Kufuado. Akwisia Jenny Boatin says, integrity pays. Congratulations, Martin Amidu. King Gorazo says, the best decision ever. Nanado is a maestro. Abdul Razak says that great job. God bless you, Mr. President. And Enin Kwabena says, pray for wisdom, Mr. Martin Amidu. Felix Nuosu says that well done, Mr. President, for appointing Martin Amidu as special prosecutor. Abdurrahman Abdul Latif says that the young people of this country are most grateful, Mr. President. God guide Martin Amidu. Engineer Godi Edujemfi says, where is Dr. Omani Boama, one of the babies with sharp teeth who once insinuated that Martin Amidu was suffering from mental imbalance? I'm sure he's biting his fingers in some corner. Moses says that good decision, and I support him all the way. Owusu Frimpong Jean says that from all indications, MPP is never prepared to let go of power anytime soon. Erica Saribuatin says, where Ghana has reached, we should throw away politics and move forward together. Poor healthcare systems does not know MPP or NDC. Poor schools does not know NDC or MPP. Together we can build. I congratulate Akufo-Addo for this appointment. Simon says that now that Mr. Martin Amidu has been appointed to handle the prosecution, let's retrieve the 51 million as quickly as we can. Maxwell also says, we are so happy tonight. Eagle says, I personally don't trust this appointment. Mr. Amidu has close friends in NDC. What if he listens to them? Let's see how it goes. And Geto says, hi, I want to know if he will have the privileges like the Shraj boss, and will his tenure of office expire with the regime that appoints him? Well, we'll get into the bill, or not, which is now law, actually, an act of parliament, which has all of these details. Nanado, please address the issue of 84,000 immigration applicants because we are interested in that, but congratulations on the appointment tonight. Okay, so keep your text messages coming in to Good Evening Ghana Official on Facebook. Mr. Samuel Abujinapo and Mr. Nelson, Nelson Eche Dafiamapo, thank you very much for your time.
It's a pleasure.
Abu, I guess that you are in high spirits tonight.
High spirits?
So give us a foundation of all of this. The president in his press conference talked about, he traced it from the campaign up until now. What's the foundation?
Well, Paul, thank you very much, and a very good evening to your cherished viewers. I think we have to begin from the very challenging issue which has confronted our country for many, many years, which is corruption. And I believe the Ghanaian people are very unanimous when it comes to what corruption does to our society. And the fact that there's a desire for us to fight this canker and fight it very forcefully. There's also been the issue of the approach at fighting this canker. I mean, there's been a lot of debate as to whether or not there should be a separation between the Minister of Justice's portfolio and the Attorney General's role, and the fact that the Attorney General sits in cabinet and is a member of the executive and will not have the independence to prosecute his own or her own, and so on and so forth. There's been this debate over the years, and also the issue of political witch hunting, and you are very familiar with it, that anytime there was a change of government and there was a call for accountability, and even sometimes call for accountability within government itself, people have had cause to raise their hands to say this is political witch hunt, this is this particular prosecution or investigation is not impartial, it's partial, and so on and so forth. So in the wisdom of the president in the course of the campaign, and with his unwavering, unyielding desire and determination to fight corruption, the president and his party, Paul, if you may, at page 135 of the MPP's manifesto, which is the manifesto that won the election of 2016. And if you permit me, I'll read The broad heading is Institutional Reform, Office of the Special Prosecutor. And it will again interest you to note that the narrative of that manifesto pledge makes allusions to the background that I've laid as to the debate and the suspicions which then got a party to make this promise and made it a sacred manifesto pledge to the Ghanaian people. And the manifesto read, I quote, "The Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, SHRAJ, and the Economic and Organized Crime Office require the permission of the Attorney General to prosecute. The monopoly of prosecutorial authority by an Attorney General, who is hired and fired by the President, has been singled out by governance experts as one of the key factors that stand in the way of using law enforcement and prosecution as a credible tool in the fight against corruption. Such institutional bottlenecks impede the fight against corruption. To this end, we intend to establish, by an act of Parliament, an office of the Special Prosecutor, who will be independent of the executive, to investigate and prosecute certain categories of cases and allegations of corruption and other criminal wrongdoing, including those involved alleged violations of the Public Procurement Act and cases implicating political office holders and politicians." So this is the manifesto pledge to which, in my view, President Akufo-Addo and his government has fulfilled in full today. The government, through the Attorney General, sponsored a bill to Parliament against a lot of opposition from the minority and criticism and so on and so forth. The government used its majority in Parliament to ensure that the bill was promulgated. The President, once the bill was promulgated, editing and everything had been done, the second day of this year, President got into office and assented to the bill and therefore gave it the effect of law. Today, the President has nominated Mr. Martin Amidu as a special prosecutor. Paul, there's another point I need to make quickly. If you look at the manifesto pledge and you look at the remit of the functions and duties and powers of the special prosecutor as captured by the law itself, it even broadens it. And I will, if you allow me, I will read a preamble, just the preamble of the act. And the preamble states, and I quote.
Act what?
This is
it will be Act 959.
Office of the Special Prosecutor Act 2018, Act 663.
663.
Yes.
That's
and I quote, and the preamble, the preamble of the act says, an act to establish the office of the Special Prosecutor as a specialized agency to investigate specific cases of alleged or suspected corruption and corruption-related offenses involving public officers and politically exposed persons, and I underline politically exposed persons. That is an expansion and a broadening.
What does that mean, by the way?
Oh, that means, for instance, your wife, your mother, your very close friend. These are people they...
Acquaintances of the political office holder.
Yes. The political office
including
holder.
Friends.
Yes, and Paul, don't forget also that, and you speak to the anti-corruption crusaders and pundits. They will tell you one of the arguments and issues they've waged over the years is the fact that the law that puts an obligation on people like us, public office holders, to declare assets do not extend to politically exposed persons, and therefore fails to achieve the ends for which the lawmaker promulgated the law requiring the declaration of assets. So all over the world, the anti-corruption crusaders will tell you, you don't achieve your goal by targeting the public officer alone, but you should broaden it. In this case, this act extends the remit of the special prosecutor to the investigation. The public the special prosecutor can investigate and prosecute as well. Investigate specific case of alleged or suspected corruption and corruption-related offenses, corruption-related, not just corruption, involving public officers and politically exposed persons in the performance of their functions, as well as persons in the private sector involved in the commission of alleged or suspected corruption and corruption-related offenses. Prosecute these offenses on the authority of the, and it goes on and on and on. And Paul, let me just conclude by saying that the personality that the President has, the Attorney General has nominated for the President's consideration and referral to Parliament, hopefully for the approval of Parliament, and then the President appoints the person, Mr. Martin Amidu. I mean, by all accounts, I think that the judgment is sound. You've just read a statement from President Rawlings. I've listened to the distinguished anti-corruption crusader, Mr. Emil Short, say that he's pleasantly surprised I heard the woman who is at the head of Ghana Integrity Initiative, Madam, I've forgotten his name, who's gone on and on about how good the appointment is. And by all accounts, Mr. Martin Amidu is a man of impeccable integrity. He's demonstrated over the years. And I think Ghanaian democracy is good for us. And this is the ultimate beneficiaries of this sound decision by the president, the good people of this country.
Is the issue about, and your opponents have taken this up, that's what I'm asking, scoring political points with this appointment, is it an added advantage, or as you're being, the opponents are accusing you of, was it part of the formative thinking that let's score some political points? Let's go to Martin Amidu.
Well, Paul, the point that has to be underscored is the fact that for the 1 year that President Akufo-Addo has been in office, and I've been privileged to work very closely with him, every decision and every move he's taken over the past year has solely been motivated by the public good.
The public good?
Yes. What is in accord with the public interest, what serves Ghana. And that's what it has been. I mean, as for the politics, we can all get into the politics at the appropriate time. Our friends will be in it for the 4 years. I mean, really, that's what they have to do. But our role, with the greatest of respect and in all humility and modesty, is to govern and govern in the interest of our country. And that's what the president has done for the past year. And this matter of corruption and special prosecutor and the office itself was well thought through. That's why when the bill was laid and it turned out that it had to be withdrawn, to be relayed for it to get legitimacy, legal legitimacy, the president did not hesitate, because it wasn't a political football or political point scoring. And in the appointment, the president took that responsibility very, very seriously. He was very mindful of the legitimacy and acceptance of the office itself, that the person who was going to occupy this office must be a person who commands the respect of the Ghanaian people, not we politicians. The people of Ghana, do they see in this person a man of integrity, a man of unquestionable credibility, and a man who will discharge his duties without fear or favor? These are the matters that the president took into consideration. And it's been so on almost every decision the president has taken. And indeed, Paul, let me say that the president's desire to fight corruption is, of course, I mean, I'm sure that across the political divide and across the spectrum, he as a person, we all have come to a literally unanimous decision. He's incorruptible, President Akufo-Addo as a person. But he also needs to put in place the right framework and mechanism to ensure that the government, our public institutions, the society as a whole, we are able to safeguard ourselves against the adverse effects of corruption. And the president has demonstrated for the year, and on every issue. For instance, take the inquiry that is going on today. We've all been in this country for the past 4-8 years and beyond. Never have we ever seen a bipartisan parliamentary inquiry into allegations of corruption. Under President Akufo-Addo, in a year, on 2 occasions, his Minister of Designate for Energy, they level allegations of corruption against him, bribery. The majority side of Parliament, and if you want, by some constructive extension, the government allowed a bipartisan parliamentary inquiry into the matter. The verdict was that those allegations were baseless. There is an inquiry ongoing as we speak, aired publicly. The whole of our country is watching it as we speak. My good friend Okudzeto Ablakwa is supposed to have been there for 4 or 5 hours or so, testifying. That is the commitment. Myself and all of us, Deputy Chief of Staff, when allegations of corruption were made against us, he triggered a process. The CID investigated us. That is the president's commitment to the fight against corruption. And I believe today, beginning from the promise that he made to the Ghanaian people, all the way through his sponsoring of the bill through his Attorney General to Parliament, and all the way the advocacy that his members of Parliament at his instance made in Parliament to ensure that the bill was promulgated, and his expeditious or his assent to the bill with such alacrity, and the announcement of the special prosecutor and the caliber of person that is announced, I think President Akufo-Addo is really made a lot of history.
Well, that's quite a long sermon, but Roxanne, you are from Parliament, and tell us, when you heard it, did you, I mean, the speculations had been on this morning, news media was chasing after each other, information was chasing after each other, we all wanted, you know, to grab the information and hear what's happening. we understood that the government was locked up in cabinet, so it was difficult to reach people. And soon after the cabinet meeting ended, media were called that, yes, the president has an announcement to make. And lo and behold, it was the big announcement of special prosecutor. Some people have actually spotted Martin Amidu at the Flagstaff house, and that's what sort of triggered the wild rumors. What was your immediate reaction when you heard it?
When I left the studios of Joy TV this morning, then I got a call that it was going to be Martin Amidu. So I wasn't surprised. My surprise, if any, was in respect of the fact that this was a man who wrote long articles criticizing the establishment of this office. Now, somebody pointed the fact that he criticized the certain clauses of the law.
Certain aspects of the law, yes.
Of the bill at the time it came. But no, if you read the totality of what he presented, it was of the view that there were already, or there are already existing institutions that are capable of performing the functions that we were then crafting for this person to undertake. And so it was an office that were coming to build upon the already heavy bureaucracy in the system. And two, it was going to serve as another economic burden on us. But be as it may, by some irony of history, he's been appointed to occupy it. And so my surprise was not the appointment, the nomination, but him accepting the nomination. Now, in the course of crafting the law, I think this was the procedure we laid out, that it is the Attorney General that will make the nomination.
Yes, correct.
And so by the nomination, I don't know why the president wants to take.
No, the president read that Attorney General.
Yes, I agree. Yeah. But when she makes the nomination, then she will communicate the nomination to Parliament. Then when we approve of or disapprove of, but in the event that we approve of, then a communication will come from Parliament to the presidency for the appointment to be made. Yes.
So
yes.
it's not,
we're very, very clear.
Yeah. Okay.
We're very, very clear on.
So that's what you are saying. It would be in a
because we debated
in terms of the procedure.
Yes, and let me
so
make
the
that correction.
nomination from the Attorney General should be coming to you.
To Parliament.
To Parliament.
Yes.
The president doesn't have much to do with it at this stage.
We know, we all understand that in the background would have been stakeholder consultations, of course including the presidency. But the first point of call will be the nomination from the AG. She has that discretion in the law.
I think we should just get the facts from the law. Abu has the
law. Now, and I want to make one other correction.
So
the Act 663 cannot be this new law. The Act 663 that we have on our laws will be the Public Procurement Act.
No, I'm not sure.
Hold on. Now, the number is Act 959.
That's okay.
9, okay.
Yeah, 2018.
That's okay.
959.
959.
Yeah. Okay.
So Special Prosecutors Act
959.
Special
but let's get the
Prosecutors
fact
Act
from the
yes.
law.
Special Prosecutors Act 2018 Act 959.
Okay.
Now,
what do you have?
Well, it's a pretty straightforward matter,
Yes.
and I'm not sure which law that my good friend has been looking at. The law upon which the special prosecutor is appointed is you find the relevant provision of the law in section 13(3) of the act, and I'll read for your own benefit. Quote, it says, the Attorney General shall nominate a person qualified for appointment as special prosecutor by the president, subject to the approval of the majority of all the members of Parliament.
Is it majority? Absolute majority?
Not absolute.
It's a
Majority.
simple
Majority.
So I was
all the
coming to
members
that
of
point.
Parliament. Okay. So 275, half of that.
Plus one.
Plus one, yes. Sina,
Simple majority. I'm listening.
Okay, so it's not an absolute majority.
So it's not
Yes, simple majority. I was going to touch on that.
Majority. Okay, so it's a simple
I was deeply involved in this law. In the
that's
crafting of
okay.
this law.
Never mind. That's fine.
Yeah.
So but it looks like the procedure that we have been told.
No, it's a correct procedure. What it is that the Attorney General shall nominate.
Yes.
So the Attorney General who nominates.
Yes.
a person qualified, the person must be qualified, and the law itself stipulates who is qualified.
Yes, correct.
For appointment as special by the president. So the appointment is the president's appointment.
Yes, yes.
It's the president who does the appointment. Yes. Subject, however, with these two, the nomination and the appointment, it must be subject to the approval of the majority of all members of parliament. And therefore, the Attorney General did write a letter to the president to nominate Mr. Martin Amidu.
For the president's appointment.
For the president's appointment. Therefore, the announcement the president made today was an announcement of the Attorney General's nomination.
Precisely, but the president quoted the letter, the date.
Of course.
We can have a look at that again. He did.
You see, I want us to get this very clear.
So once Parliament, if Parliament were to approve Mr. Martin Amidu, the president would then appoint him.
We'll swear him in if you like.
Yeah, that's appointment.
So there'll be a second announcement.
No, that's the law.
Like ministers. It's like the appointment of ministers.
No, hold on.
Under Article 78, isn't it?
Hold on.
Ministers are nominated by the
president. The formula as is placed here. I didn't expect the announcement today to come from the presidency.
But that's what the law says.
No.
It says the Attorney General shall nominate for the president.
Yes.
Subject to the approval of Parliament.
Yes. So he doesn't make the announcement until he goes through Parliament.
But when he's appointing ministers, subject to the approval of Parliament, he makes the announcement before he goes to
Parliament.
Well,
in crafting this law, we're of the view that he will only make the announcement after.
But then that would be violating your own precedent. Your own precedent, according to Article 78, where the president appoints for the approval of Parliament, or the same way,
we
subject to the approval of Parliament.
We had recourse to the constitutional provision.
Yes, but in 78, where it says subject to the approval of Parliament, the president makes the announcement of ministers.
I'm just asking a very harmless question that, so the president make another announcement again.
No, he does with ministers.
Or it will just be a press
But he does that with ministers.
No. Paul.
He nominates ministers, subject to the approval of Parliament. When the ministers are approved by Parliament, the president comes back, hands them over the scroll, and says that you're a minister.
Sometimes the ministerial appointments are conveyed in a press release.
Paul,
you know that.
Paul,
No, it doesn't take.
There's a big problem here. See them, please. You say you are deeply involved in
yes.
You know. I mean, when you are
but you are taking my time.
No.
So note the point.
But you have some more to say, isn't it?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Indeed.
Okay. You've made the point about what you feel is different in terms of the procedure of the appointment.
No. The law is very clear.
It's very clear.
What I think happened today was that I think the president took the sign
of who?
Of the AG. No, of AG.
Oh,
yes, that's what I think.
The president's appointment.
I know. I know. In any case, we didn't state in what form the nomination should take. In any case.
Yes.
In any case, we only said nominate to nominate.
But he did that in the
it could have been by a press release, or otherwise.
Fair enough. Let's move on to the other matters.
So we are of the opinion that once the appointment has come, I have always made the point, and strongly so, that it ought not to be the occupant of the office, ought not to be a politically aligned person. Indeed, there are a lot of debates raging on. But I'm saying, why not? If Martin exhibits all the qualities that we expect of the occupant of this very important office to be able to effectively function as such, we'll wish him well, and we'll see how he's able to bring his vast skills in terms of...
What form is the parliamentary approval going to take? Do you know?
Yes, we debated this again, but we settled on a simple majority. Simple majority.
Would there be consideration and vetting?
Yes, I think so.
By the appointments committee?
I suspect that it may take that form. Because when the communication comes to Parliament and Speaker reads out the communication, naturally Speaker will refer to the appropriate committee, and that will be the appointment committee.
So they will hear him like they hear ministers.
Indeed.
And then they'll bring the report.
Indeed, because you see...
My concern is this prescription from the law that you have to have the whole majority.
Simple.
Yeah, the simple majority
simple
of the whole.
Majority.
How is it going to be achieved? Is it after the vetting?
Yes, after the vetting.
But after the vetting, the appointment committee will generate a report.
Yes,
so
and it comes back to plenary. No, it comes back to plenary for it to be debated, the merits.
But he will be heard only by the appointment committee?
Yes, okay. But plenary will debate whatever report the appointment committee will submit, and then it will be voted upon.
It is that vote that has to carry a majority.
Indeed.
A simple majority.
A simple majority.
So that means all things being equal, Martin is really there.
Yes, of course. I, for instance, will vote for him. We want the office to function, and then we'll see how it plays out.
So this matter about the NDC was going to go to court against the law is off the table?
I didn't hear that. I don't know where you heard it.
Okay, now it was rumored that the NDC were preparing to go to court
look,
against the law.
This law, when the law came, we were for the law. And I want to make that point. There was never a time that we criticized the law. We criticized the content. Look, the structure of this law changed because of people like me. Yes, there were a lot of structural and thematic changes. And these things were done mainly by members of the minority. You understand? So we gave the law our support.
Congratulations then.
Yes, we wanted this thing to be done properly. You understand? So for instance, if you look at where they said Office of the Independent Prosecutor, we canvassed the point that there will be nothing independent about the person who will come. So it should rather be a mandate. So
what is this issue about you wanted the person to be a foreigner?
Yes, I, for example, mooted the idea at the committee level that we are looking for an occupant of this office who should be an apolitical, politically non-aligned. Now, because we are of the opinion, or we canvass in the law, that the position is analogous to that of a Court of Appeal judge. Now, if you are looking for, it's all because of the independence in the performance of his functions, not the person. Because naturally, the appointment process there's nothing independent about it. He has to be appointed, nominated, and approved, and all that. So there's nothing independent about the appointment. But in the course of performing the functions of his office, he needs that high level of independence. And we are saying, we even so it's in our contemplation that even a foreigner should be able to apply and be nominated and appointed to function in this position.
What's the tenure of the first special prosecutor?
7 years.
7 years.
Non-renewable.
Non-renewable.
Oh, non-renewable.
Initially, we made it renewable.
One term.
Yes.
One term, yeah.
Initially, we made it renewable, but it generated a lot of debate, and so we settled on the fact that.
But if it's a Court of Appeal judge, then the terms will be that at
no,
age 70,
removal.
It's a removal that's analogous.
Yes. The removal process that's.
But the conditions of service.
Okay, that's interesting.
Conditions of service is also analogous
to Court of Appeal.
Yes.
And the removal process.
So the removal is also as stringent.
Not retirement.
No, because
we can read it out.
It's not about retirement.
I want to know about the question of age.
No, we don't have to quarrel
over
it.
Yeah,
right here.
Yes.
5.
Yes.
The special prosecutor shall hold office as the same terms and conditions of service as a justice of the Court of Appeal, except that the tenure of office shall be a non-renewable tenure of 7 years. So everything else about him is conterminous to Court of Appeal.
Okay.
Judge.
But if he's appointed at age 70, he's there for 7 years. Because Court of Appeal will have to be retired at 70.
Yes. So in other words, well, I would think that once appointed, it is once appointed, then the tenure will be 7 years.
Will be sprung into
so
life.
assuming that Martin was 66 and he'll be 70 in 4 years' time, he will still hold the office for 7 years.
Indeed, we even contemplated that retired Supreme Court judges could have been appointed.
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yes.
So over 70s could
yeah,
be appointed.
So because it's just about the appointment.
That makes me more comfortable.
Yeah, when you occupy the office, that's the security of tenure. We gave the occupant a security of tenure.
Okay.
So that the person will not be doing all this and be thinking
that there are 2 deputies, right?
Yeah, 2 deputies.
I think it's one. I'm not
sure.
It's
one,
One. But there will be other.
One deputy.
But has that also been named?
No, it's not been named. But Paul, more fundamentally, and my friend NDC MP, very interesting argument. Well, what I heard you say in other places. Okay.
Today I am your NDC MP. I'm not a friend.
I said my friend. I said my friend NDC MP. That's what I said. I want to qualify the NDC. Everybody knows where you come from with all this U-turn argument. It's obvious that
what U-turn argument?
No, hold on. It's obvious.
No. This is a very big stage. So
okay, I will draw. You don't let us know. I will draw.
Yeah,
once you're happy with that.
Good.
But what is the point, Paul? I think we should be principled and consistent. And I don't have a problem with them wanting to share in the achievement, the accomplishment, and the glory that comes to all of Ghana. by these very responsible steps that the president has taken, and also arising out of this sound judgment of the president. He can take credit from it as a Ghanaian. But as NDC,